Okay, we are preparing to live stream the meeting, so hold on. Hopefully this should work.
Yep.
Oh, hopefully this should work. Looks like we are live.
All right.
Hello, everyone. Welcome. Welcome to the Cards for Congress Live with Yana and Denzel. Give me 1 second because I'm getting an echo and I need to figure out which tab I need to mute.
Mute YouTube.
Second, because I'm getting an echo and I need to figure out what. Okay. Okay. I think we're good. I'm not the most technically savvy person, so this is very complicated for me. So bear with me. I know I had a link created for this live and we tried to go live in that link in that event, but unfortunately we were not able to figure that out because, well, we just weren't. Anyhow, hi everyone. I'm Yana Smakula. Welcome to the Cards for Congress Live. I'm joined by my friend and colleague Denzel Quick from Spellbinders. Denzel has been a friend for a very long time, and when Denzel asked me to do this live with him, the only answer that I had was yes. So there we are, doing this live. Hopefully, we will answer questions, we will educate people, and we're all going to walk out of this with a little bit more clarity. So I'm going to pass the word on to Denzel because he is much more versed in this matter than I am. So Denzel, please take it away.
Thanks, Yana. Thanks. Yeah, and we have known each other for a very long time, and we love each other, respect each other. And I know Olus is off stage there someplace. Hi, Olus.
Oh, if you can come in and say hello. Yes, so
Hello, everyone.
we have Olis with us as well, helping with the technical things.
Yeah, and Gavin is back here too. So, yeah, I've known Olus and Yana for a very long time. Love them both dearly. Great people, and we're going to talk about a very hot subject today, tariffs. It's in the news. You see it all about. And what does it mean to us? We'll talk. I just want to I want to be very, very clear. There are no questions that are off limits. So any question that anyone has, Olus is going to do some moderation. I think Skylar here on our social media, she's going to do some moderation too. So we're going to set the stage a little bit, let some people come in that were maybe on the other link or whatever. So we'll have a few things to talk about before we get right into the questions. So we have a list of questions that we're going to go over. And then if there's something that I missed that isn't perfectly clear to anybody, then we are happy to stay and answer any of your questions as well. This is an open book. We'll talk about anything that you have questions about regarding tariffs, manufacturing in the US, manufacturing overseas, what all that means, and what does it mean for our craft industry, because that's what we all love. So that's what we're here today to talk about. So I first really wanted to set the stage because it is, I mean, the passion that's in it, I love to see. And I would just want to I want to be perfectly clear that there is no right or wrong answers. We need to be respectful. I'm going to talk a little bit about that here in a minute too. But I just want to make sure that everybody feels comfortable in answering their questions, no matter where it comes from, no matter what it is. No question is too difficult to answer. And if I don't have the answer to it, I'll tell you I don't have the answer to it, or I'll give you my best estimate, and we can find out the answer for you. So I just want to talk a little bit too about perspectives. And before we get into the questions, I have a couple things. I want to set the stage for what we're going to talk about and how we're going to talk about it. So perspectives. I'm 59, so I probably am the median age of our consumer. So most of you are probably in a stone's throw away from me as far as age goes. And we grew up in a time that was really, you got your news from ABC, CBS, NBC, when we were kids. And it was, a half an hour at 6 o'clock at night and a half an hour at 11 o'clock at night. And all the stories were like, 30-second stories or maybe a minute story. And they would go through world events, sports, anything that's going on. And so that was kind of how we got all of our information. And now we live in this world that has so much information that it's hard for us to digest and it's hard for us to make any sense of. And it certainly does feel like everybody or everything has a political slant to it. I'll not deny that at all. And it goes both ways. So by the end of this conversation, hopefully we will be here for an hour or so, give or take, however long it takes, we're here. By the end of it, I'll probably say something that will upset everybody because we all have uh, a new world, a new perspective on how we get our information, and the way information's fed to us is certainly biased. We hear about um, we hear about links and we hear about algorithms and how data and information is fed to us by big tech media as well as traditional media as well. So, and social media, all of that is fed to us in algorithms. So we see what kind of reinforces our beliefs. And sometimes we need to get outside and hear a little different perspective. And I want to, bring a little bit of that into this conversation as well, because to give you one example, so when we went, there was a few companies who went to Congress a few weeks ago, and we talked about this issue for the arts and crafts industry. And one of the things that I want to be very clear of is the difference, and I might go over things a couple times in this talk, the difference between politics and policy. Politics is really about power and getting the election. So when you talk about politics, it's about somebody getting elected, a campaign contribution. Politics is about building consensus in a particular organization or a group. Policy is really about how it affects us, how it affects us individually as people and as companies. And it is our First Amendment right to discuss policy and talk about what we want to talk about. And if you, at the end of this conversation, if you support tariffs and if you think, hey, I disagree with Denzel, if you support tariffs, by golly, you should write a card to your congressman and senator and say, I want as many tariffs as I can get. Let's do it. Or if you prefer to write a card and express yourself about, hey, whatever your position is on tariffs, that's what we're here to talk about. So when we were flying into Washington, D.C., we landed, as you're taxiing up, you turn on your phone, you take it off airplane mode, and I'm getting some things, and I'm just getting caught up on stuff. And I had this little thing pop up in one of my social media feeds. It's an old friend from 25 years ago or so that I used to work with, and they repost things all the time as far as like these outrageous, memes or pictures or whatever. And one of them showed Ted Cruz. And it said, so this was right when at the right after those tragic floods that were in Texas and, killed, I think a couple hundred people and was just awful. And this picture showed a picture of Ted Cruz and said, while Texas suffers, Ted Cruz is in Greece on family vacation. He should be back in Texas helping his local people or whatever. And so, I took that in my brain as just a check mark, and it's like, yeah, okay, I don't disagree with that sentiment. And then, so we go check in a hotel, we go to dinner, and we're sitting at dinner, and a guy that we're with says, "Hey, look over there." 2 tables over was Ted Cruz. So an hour earlier, I had a meme that said Ted Cruz is in Greece, and now I'm sitting 2 tables away from him. So um, maybe he should have been in Texas. That's a different discussion. But the premise of it is that, like, a lot of what we see in social media is just simply wrong. It's stuff that's made up. It's not true. It gets amplified out there, even though it comes from a friend that you might have known for 25 years or 30 years or whatever. Just be a little suspicious about any memes or anything that you see on social media. So because not everything that's out there is true, right? So just want to set that stage and then also just talk about a respectful conversation with our colleagues and peers. And I've never met anybody in the industry on the manufacturing side or on the retailer side or the consumers who aren't wonderful people. We all love what we do. And we need to have professional quality dialogue. We can disagree. And disagreement, I just want to have a little quick story about my dad. So I was adopted from birth. My dad's like 5'6". I'm 6'2". We have very different opinions on everything. We didn't agree on anything. So when I was growing up, my mom was there. I grew up poor. My dad was they got out of West Virginia and in the 50s, and I was born in the 60s. I was adopted from birth. And they did that for a better life for themselves and a better life for me. So we didn't need a lot of money. I have tremendous gratitude for my parents. My mom was a stay-at-home mom. My dad was a union guy, and I didn't see him a lot. So my whole life, I never saw him a lot because he would work, do double shifts, did everything he could to make money for the family. And I respect that tremendously. When my mom passed, so I really didn't know my dad until my 40s, quite honestly. My mom was always there. When my mom passed away, um, my dad, a few years later, came to live in Arizona near me and my wife. He still wanted to be independent, but he needed a lot of help. So he was on dialysis, and I took him to dialysis, 3 days a week, took him there and picked him up 3 days a week for 5 years. So I got to know my dad, later on in life, and we still disagreed about everything, but we loved each other tremendously. He's a great guy, great morals, great ethics. Even though we disagree on topics, doesn't mean that we have to dislike each other, or doesn't mean that we don't have to respect each other. So that's where I want to come from in this conversation. I want to make 100% clear that you do not have to agree with me at all. You can think that I'm crazy. You can think that I'm totally wrong about a subject, but just recognize that everything that we do comes from the right place. And I think every post that I've seen that is even contradictory or maybe even a little angry, which I respect, comes from the right place. People want to do the right thing. So with that said, Yana, we we have on occasion, Yana and I, we took these, what are they called? The PI test. It's not a test, it's more of an evaluation of your personality. And Yana and I are really, really similar. Olus is a friend to everybody. Olus is like a big panda bear, everybody loves Olus. So, so, um, but even Yana and I, as much as if you look at our scores or our placements on these things, it's like we are really, really similar people. Except she has more hair and is way more creative than I am. So, but as far as personality goes, we're very similar. But we've disagreed in the past, right? So, and we still are best friends. So there's no reason why we can't disagree on things and still be best friends. And so, with that stage set, I hope that we have that conversation. I hope that the industry has that conversation, and we can have that conversation as friends, peers, colleagues, because we're all in this together to create beautiful things. That's what we're about. So, Yana, you have the list of questions. If you want to start with those, and like I said, if these are questions that we've received, and some externally, some internally, some from other companies. And if you have anything that you want to riff on a little bit, please feel free to do so.
Yes. Yes. So I have my list of questions, and I just wanted to mention that if you guys have questions, feel free to put them in the comments section. We will answer questions probably once we go through the questions that we have here. So we will get to your questions, but later. And maybe, if you write a question, maybe we already have it here. So maybe we will answer it as we go.
Sure.
So, question number one, what are tariffs? Why were they imposed on arts and crafts products from China?
Cool. Well, let's start at the top. What are tariffs? So, like it or not, this will probably this, we're going to dive right into it, and people are probably going to disagree with me right from the start. But I will clarify things when it comes to tariffs. What are tariffs? Tariffs are taxes. Well, you might disagree with that, but since 1773 or whenever it was that the East India Trading Company, put tariffs on us for tea, and we had the Boston Tea Party here in the U.S. That was 3%, by the way, 3% tariff. So tariffs are taxes. So it's a method by which the government uh, gets money to put into its coffers to spend on programs and other things. So one of the questions that we get a lot is like, there's also some narrative out there about who pays for tariffs. The reality is you pay for tariffs. We cut the check for tariffs. So whoever imports the products is who pays the tariff bill. I know that there's some narrative out there about like, well, we're going to have China pay for tariffs, or we're going to have Vietnam pay for tariffs, or we're going to have whatever country pay for tariffs. They're paying the bills for tariffs. That is completely false. We have an account with CBP, Customs and Border Patrol. Spellbinders has an account. Every company that imports anything into the US, there's two ways to do it. Either you have an account, we happen to have a tariff account with Customs and Border Patrol. When product is shipped to the United States, when it's on a boat in Long Beach, California, before that product gets off of the boat in Long Beach, California, we have to pay the tariff bill, or else it doesn't get off the boat in California. So, and then it's shipped here. So we have a direct deposit account, or a CHA, whatever it's called. So we wire the Customs and Border Patrol the amount of duty that is called for that particular shipment. The other option is the factory in China ships a manufacturer the product, by which they have to pay the tariffs, and they add it on to the bill of your invoice. So if you have something, so instead of us importing it, they're importing it, and they paid the tariff bill, and then whoever the factory is or the manufacturer is, in this case, if a factory is importing something for us and they import it, they add it onto the bill, and we pay the whole bill. So it's that simple. And with that, the tariff rates, I'm sure there's some discussion about tariff rates. Tariff rates have changed 8 times this year. Major changes 8 times this year. So it's really difficult to plan a business. It's really difficult to know what your cost is and what do we charge customers. So I'm sure we'll talk about that more in a little bit. Tariffs weren't just imposed on the arts and crafts industry, and not just from China. Tariffs are in place from every country now has tariffs. And I don't disagree with tariffs. I don't think anybody disagrees with tariffs. I think tariffs are a good thing to raise revenue for the government, to provide services for the people. I think that that's perfectly reasonable and responsible. And tariffs, I think, were the only source of revenue for the government until the early 1900s. So when we started having income tax in the US. Other countries are different, certainly. But in the US, I'm speaking about, tariffs were the only form of revenue for the government for more than 100 years. I think closer to 150 years. That was the only way that the government received money. Tariffs aren't a bad thing. Tariffs can be good. We're talking about unreasonable tariffs. At one point this year, we were paying 170% tariffs. 170%. So if something cost us $10, that means we had to pay $17 in tariffs before we could actually get that $10 product released from Customs Border Patrol so we can get it here. So that's what we're talking about, is that we need a reasonable, logical tariff strategy for the US. Zero tariffs is probably not an answer, but a reasonable tariff policy. So So all products basically have tariffs on them now. There might be a few outlier things, and we'll talk more about tariff codes. There's something called, if I mention HTS, just make a mental note of this. HTS is a harmonized tariff schedule. So that is a number basically that when you're importing something, every item has a number to classify it, to clarify, to categorize it. So depending on the product, what it is, that number might vary a little bit. There's all kinds of numbers for all kinds of products, if you can imagine. So that's how they determine how much tariff you're going to pay on it. So an HTS code. So in the future, I'll just say HTS code, and we can talk about that. So does that answer it?
Yes.
Okay, cool.
Thank you.
You bet.
I'm also keeping an eye on the comments, by the way. So thank
Sure.
you for keeping
Perfect.
the discussion live. Second question, how do these tariffs affect the final price that I pay for craft supplies?
Sure. Also a great question. So when I'm talking today, I'm mainly talking to the US audience because we have a lot of things going on with tariffs right now. And although it can be, the global audience is impacted also. Right now, when when you're making something, if we make a product that costs $10, we use that, so let's just stick on that. If we make something that costs $10, um, it used to be before COVID, freight was really inexpensive. Freight was almost a non-factor. So we could ship a container. Everybody's seen those containers that ship from China. It's like a semi truck that's, they put on wheels and then they take it off and put it on the ship. So we've all seen container ships. A container costs us about $2,000 to ship a container from China to the US, which is really inexpensive. Today, that same container costs no less than probably 6,000, but it can cost as much as $9,000. So what used to be almost a rounding error for freight costs now is a significant cost. So as we've all seen in the last 5 years, really, inflation really grab us all. And we see everything from the price of eggs to the clothes that you wear to everything that you do costs more money. And there's a lot of reasons for that. And we're not here to talk about all those reasons, but when you factor in the cost of that $10 item, and now we have to pay tariffs on that item that today is so at the beginning of this year, we had zero tariffs on a lot of things. We had 3% on some, 8% on others. Tariffs have been around forever. Like I said earlier, we've had tariffs for a long time, but they went to 10% and then 20% and then 55% and then 170% on some, 145 on others, and then back to 55% and then now back to 30%. There's been 8 major changes in tariffs since in the first 7 months of the year. So you can't plan a business that way. We plan our designs. We plan our designs 9, 12 months out. So we have a calendar of what we're designing, what products we're going to launch from today. We're planning products for the spring of next year. We're starting to work on summer. So we're actually starting to work on Christmas soon, Christmas of 2026. So when tariffs change that much, we don't know how to plan. We don't know what to do. So that cost, now that 35%, so that cost goes right into the cost of goods. So that it's not only the tariffs, but it's that freight that used to be $2,000 that's now $9,000. And the tariffs are a part of that. So it takes that $10 product. Now our cost of that $10 product is now $15 or $17. And so that's how you, and then from there we figure out how much can we charge to retail stores, because we love our independent retail stores, and we want to support them, and we're all about, I've only ever worked for small businesses. So we really want the independent retailer to succeed as well. So that's how the cost of your hobby now goes up, is because of all these additional costs that are associated with it that have nothing to do with the actual product itself. Cool.
Yeah, sorry, I got distracted by reading the comments. You're doing great, Denzel. Thank you.
Yeah, cool.
By the way, I wanted to ask everyone if you could also share a link to this live stream with your friends. Anybody who might be interested in this topic, we would greatly appreciate it. So, next question.
Yeah.
Are all craft products from China affected, or only certain categories of products?
Cool. Yeah, great question. Today, all categories are affected. December of last year, different categories were affected differently. So, dirty little secret about tariffs is like the shirt that I'm wearing. Uh, if it was made in China, I don't think it is actually. I think it was made in Malaysia. But if it was made in China for my lifetime, it's probably had 25% tariff on it, roughly thereabouts, give or take a little bit. So depending on when we talk about those HTS codes, there are thousands, I think, of HTS codes. They're a 10-digit code, and I think I might have this a little bit wrong, but you'll get the idea. I think the first 6 digits are global. So the first 6 digits have to do with it might be like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and that identifies a piece of it has a description of what that particular product is. And if you have a product that fits that description, it has to fit in that HTS code globally. So if we are importing something from China here, and then we do something with it here and we export it to the UK, we're using that same tariff code. The last 4 digits, I believe a country can subdivide it even still there, even more so. So when so as an example, I'll give you, we do Spellbinders Paper Arts is primarily a die cutting die business, right? So we have a lot of other products, and I'll talk about some of the other categories as well. So die cutting, so these HTS codes, like everything in the government, it's antiquated, okay? So the HTS codes, I believe, again, I might have this a little bit off, but I think were primarily created in the 70s. So uh, the world has changed a little bit since the 70s. There's a lot of different products that are in the 70s. Our category didn't even exist in the 70s. So when they created these HTS codes, there's a category for die cutting and professional equipment, okay, like that. So in that category was created for large, so like if you go to a printer, I don't have anything here, but if you go to a printer like our catalogs that we print, if you go to a printer and you have something printed, a big catalog, it's done on a machine that is massive. Okay. So the machine is huge and it'll print, they do 4-color printing, lithography printing, whatever the particular printing is. And then as an option, you can have a die cut in the middle of that catalog, or you can have hot foil on that catalog, or you can have embossing on that catalog, or you can have letterpress on that catalog. All of those professional techniques from printing, we have downsized and put on your Platinum machine or your Platinum 6, so or your Big Shot if you're a Sizzix fan. We've put on a small machine, and we have taken basically industrial process and put it on a small manual tabletop device. However, those HTS codes have not been updated. So we have to import our products basically in the same HTS codes as some of those big professional equipment. So if I'm Joe Schmo printer and I want to buy a big professional machine, that machine is most likely made in China, maybe in Germany. But Germany is actually getting out of manufacturing too. And so our little $99, if you're getting a Scout or a $79 Scout, is in the same category as $1.5 million professional press. So if the government says we want to get that manufacturing for that professional press back to the US, they might not even care about us. The reality is when we meet with these government officials, they don't even know our industry exists. They don't even they don't have any clue that paper crafting, hand card making, paper arts is even a thing. So they're worried about the big industrial stuff. So they put a tariff code on that big industrial printer, and it happens to be that our product is in that same category. So if they want to tax that or tariff that 55%, or there, we've heard of 301 tariffs. 301 tariffs were created, again, I think that was I think it was 73, 74, 75, something like that, to equalize the playing field. So the problems that exist in the US in manufacturing with tariffs are not something that started under Trump or started under Biden or started under Obama or anything. This has been a problem that's been created over 50 years. So the manufacturing base in the US has eroded over 50 years. And do we need to fix that? Yes, we do, but we can't do it overnight. And we can't do it by slamming tariffs on everything, because our product that's in that $1 million category, now that so it's you can imagine if I'm a if I own Joe Schmo Printing and I buy a $1 million press, now that cost is $1.5 million. So I have to increase my cost on a catalog a little bit, but it's going to last for 10, 15, 20 years. And I'm a business, I'm an industry. If if this is consumer products, this is disposable income. This is not pharmaceuticals. It's not your iPhone. It's not something, what we do, we love to do. It's our passion, but it's not food. We don't, our industry relies on all that money that you have left over at the end of the month. Basically, after you pay your rent, after you do, you buy your food, after you do everything. So disposable income is very different than a lot of other categories. So depending on, back to your original question, so depending on what category of HTS code will determine what tariff rate you have. So right now, everything from China has 30% as a basis. And there is a 301 tariff that has a pause, or it has a exemption on it for us. So what we did, we ask about, I'm sure one of these questions are talking about, have we ever got tariff relief in the past? Yes. So there was a 301 tariff that was enacted, and it had a 25% tariff on all large, it was designed for those large manufacturing products. And we went to our congressman, Spellbinders did. We went to our congressman and with Gabe, the guy who's helped us out. I don't know if he's on here or not, but so we went and lobbied for that, and it's on a category. It's not just Spellbinders doesn't just get it; it's on a whole category of products. So everything under that HTS code. So anybody who made dies, when we argued for the tariff relief, which is our First Amendment right to affect policy, we actually did get an exemption, and we carved it out in some language. I don't remember the exact language, but it had to be a tabletop device that was not industrial size. So even though we're under that same HTS code, we got an exemption because we were not of the large category that is an industrial kind of product. So that's how the language was worded. So it was able to carve out a niche for paper crafting, die cutting products in that code. But paints will have a different code. Paper has a different code. Hand tools have a different code. So everything that you do has a different code. So it will depend on that code. Right now, we're talking overall tariffs. 30% is on everything. So.
This is a very interesting conversation, and I'm learning a lot. I hope you guys are learning as a lot as well. Thank you,
We
Denzel. This is like a wealth of information.
we normally, all this stuff goes on behind the scenes every day and for years, and so we try to, I think one of my roles is to try and keep all those distractions away from you, away from the creative people. So we try to basically, we're like blockers and tacklers, So we like block and make a hole. So you can just focus on the creative stuff. You don't have to worry about all this other stuff. But it is in the news. It is going to affect us all. So that's why we want to have this conversation.
Yes, thank you. Very, very helpful. Let's go ahead to our next question. What percentage of arts and crafts products that are sold in the US are actually made in China?
That's a great question. I don't know exactly and specifically, but I can tell you as an industry, if I look back over the history of spellbinders, at one point, to give you an idea of kind of this is the reality, this is how things work. So at one point, they made everything in the US early on in like 2003, 2004. And it wasn't very long when spellbinders first started. Then they take the products and they go show them to chain stores, to the large arts and crafts stores. They say, "Hey, here's our products. Aren't these cool?" And the large stores say, "That's cool, but your price is way out of bounds. We can't do that." And so basically the only option if you want to sell something to a store and specifically a large chain store was to take it offshore, take it to China. So that's really and China is the only place that had the expertise, and I'll talk about that here in a minute too. But so Spellbinders started producing basically everything in China. So all the machines, all the dies, and that was really all that we did. And then I came on board 2014, so 11 years ago, and we moved some things around and we started to get into new categories. And as we get into new categories, we always, I was grew up in Ohio. I saw what happened to manufacturing in the Midwest in the US. Steel towns shrank, and it's tragic. I mean, steel towns went away, lots of depression, lots of people losing their jobs, lots of blue collar jobs gone. So it's heartbreaking and it's bad. But that was really forced by the policies that the government puts in place. They encourage offshoring. And that's, like I said, that's been 50 years in the making. So we started to try to bring things back. And I know a lot of companies do make in the US. Ranger makes all their inks in the US. A lot of companies, Stuart Superior, they make all their inks in the US and all their parts and pieces in the US. And it's still assembled and filled in Mexico. So there's a lot of things that can be done in the US. So right now, like 100% of our inks are made in the US or assembled in Mexico if Stuart does them. 100% of our clear stamps, let me take that back, maybe 95% of our clear stamps are made in the US. The quality of the domestic stamps is far superior than the stamps that are made in China or any place else. The UK also, the UK makes some really good quality clear stamps. So stencils, like almost all of our stencils are made in the US. So inks, so it really depends on the expertise of the product and the scalability of the product. If you can make, we think most people in the arts and crafts industry thinks that Spellbinders is this huge company, and I read that in social media sometimes, big Spellbinders, whatever. I kind of laugh. We joke about it sometimes. So Spellbinders, as a company, when we acquired Hero Arts last year, when we acquired Hero Arts, I think our total headcount, all employees, including you, Yana, including everybody that we have that remotely or that is in this office, um, I think is between 50 and 60 people for two brands. So I had a interesting conversation with a guy who I know who or I met. I don't know him. We're not best buddies, but he managed a Chick-fil-A. And I don't know, you've probably heard about Chick-fil-A. I don't know if you've ever been to one, but so
Not been to one, but I heard about
okay,
it.
so fantastic, amazing chicken sandwiches. So an average Chick-fil-A restaurant has between 70 and 80 people. Sometimes they go as high as 100 to 120 seasonally. So one little Chick-fil-A fast food restaurant has way more people than our two brands. So, and we are probably on the mid-size, maybe a little larger than most craft brands, but we're still a small company. So a lot of our friends in the industry who make dies and stamps and other stuff, they might have 10 employees or 18 employees or 20 employees. And there's a few that have 80, 90, 100, maybe a few hundred employees. But there's no super huge companies in our industry. So when we talk about when we talk about manufacturing, we're talking about making things on a small scale. So if you sell 500 or 1,000 of a stamp, that can be a lot. So and so when you look at setting up manufacturing, when we'll talk more about actually manufacturing in the U.S., you can do that for inks. You can do that for stamps. Is relatively easy to make 50 or 100 or 200 or 500 stamps. You can do that. When you get into some other products like dies, like machines, there's no way you can do that in the US. And I'll talk about that more here in a little bit. So I would guess that probably 50% of the products are made, 50%, maybe a little bit more. And it depends on the categories. Most of your stamps, most of your inks, most of your things like that are made in the US. Your stencils, almost all the tools are made in either China or Taiwan or maybe some in Vietnam. But so it really depends on the product. So I hope that answers the question.
I think it does. I was also thinking patterned paper. I remember
Pattern
that.
paper. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Great question. So pattern paper. There's a lot that's made in the US. So there's some great factories in the US that do pattern paper. So pattern paper really depends on some price point. If you're going after quality and really nice bold colors and good quality paper, that's probably mostly made in the US. If you're going after a lower price point, that's in China. That's most likely going to be in China. Or if you're doing a bundle of things. So if I want to dye, so that's why I paused on stamps a little bit. If I'm creating a big bundle of something in a box, I'm most likely going to make that clear stamp in China because it has a dye and because it has some pattern paper and because it has all these other things in it that I can only get from China. Um, because it's difficult to bring something into the US and then open it up back up and put something in from some. So it just requires more labor, more time, and sometimes you don't have time. Because you're running so late anyway. One other thing too, I do want to talk about since we're on that. It's not China in particular, but it will. Everybody's probably very familiar with our paper, the new cardstock that we have. We love that paper. We've got rave reviews about that paper. Um, and I'll touch on making things in the US just a little bit with this. So when we started on that project, it's been 3 years ago, we were getting inconsistent supply from the people that we were buying paper from. So they would be out of this color and that color and the other color. And with die cutting, if you're doing some arts and crafts, you can just switch colors, right? But if you're doing Christmas, if you're making your Christmas cards and our supplier doesn't have red or green paper, you can't make Christmas cards. So we looked at the only option that we really had was to go to the mills directly. So we wanted to go directly to the mills and make our own paper. And we wanted it to be able to emboss. We wanted it to be able to take ink. We wanted it to be able um, to hot foil and letterpress as needed. So we had these very specific characteristics that we wanted in a paper. And and no question, we started out domestic. We started out in the US. So there's lots of paper mills up in Wisconsin, Minnesota area, and we went to them. We went to Neenah, we went to Mohawk, we went to all the mills up there, and we said, "Hey, we want to make this paper." And literally all of them said, "No, thanks, we don't want your business." That's that's literally what they said. Thanks, business is good enough. We're happy with what we're doing. We do not want we're not gonna take this project on. So they're happy making ivory and white paper in different weights or whatever, and their business is good, and the quality of their paper is fantastic. That's why we went to them. But when people say, just bring it back to the US, it's like, well, okay, I get that. We want to do that. We have tried to do that in many situations. And in many cases, in the case of paper, they didn't want our business. And so our options were to then go to Europe. So Europe has some great quality mills. We went to Italy, we went to Spain, we went to the UK, and we ended up in Sweden at a mill that has been making paper since like 1620 or something like that. So they've been around for basically 400 years making paper, and they had the artisan craftsmanship. They were delighted to make the paper. They saw it as a challenge. They wanted our business. They were engaged to do it. Even before you talked about cost, like even before we talked about, hey, we want to do this, they saw it as something that they really wanted to do. They liked the challenge of making this color of purple or this color of green or this color of blue and having them all blend together. And I think the final result is what it is. It's beautiful paper. And that's what we go for first, is we first go for quality. We find the best manufacturer of products, and we try to go for whoever makes the best quality product, and then we'll figure out a way to make the price work. So when we look at that too, to go back to the question originally, sometimes in case Yana knows this very well, but in case everybody else doesn't, I squirrel very easily. So I go down a rabbit hole. So when you talk about the quality of the products that we make is first and foremost. So when Spellbinders, going back to when Spellbinders was originally founded, and we were making everything in the US, and then we had to move offshore because of cost production and stuff. Some of the quality also increased. So the original dyes that they were making in the US were not that good of quality, and the dyes that were made in China were actually way, way better quality. Same with the machine. And so a lot of manufacturing has been brought back on shore, and there's a lot of products that are made in the US. However, not everything is, not everything can be, because the infrastructure is not here to support that. And even the mills don't want the business in the case of paper. So I hope that answers it. Do you have
Yeah.
any follow-ups?
Not at the moment. Thank you. I don't want to do another product category because that's going to be like another 10 minutes. I'm joking. Okay, so the next question, I think we kind of touched a little bit on this, but maybe we can expand.
Sure.
Back to the tariffs. Have the
Yeah.
tariffs increased in 2024 or 2025, or are they still the same from the previous years?
They've increased a lot. So so to give you an idea, you, Yana, and everybody who's listening, for every in 2024, for every 1,000, and we've always paid tariffs. We've always had tariffs. There's that's not a secret. That's not an issue. Tariffs have always existed, and they should probably always exist. I think that's it's a the government needs money to operate and to do the things that we, the people, want the government to do for us. So the government needs revenue, and some of that, a portion of that revenue, is going to come from tariffs. There's no issues with that at all. But to give you an example, for every 1,000, let's say you can put it, this is true on any scale. For every $1,000 of tariffs that we paid in 2024, in 2025, we pay $13,000 in tariffs. So that's a 1,300% increase in tariffs. So, so some of that is because there was a period, there was a window of time where we were paying 170% tariff. But even today, it's 30% on basically everything. There are some things that it's 38%. 30% is the base. There is a 25% tariff, an additional 25% tariff that is on dies and machines and certain tools like that. That is on a exemption that will come back into effect in mid-August. So middle of August, our tariffs are going to go from 30% to 55%. And unless, like we've seen have happen in the recent months, is that 55 could go to 90 or 120, or it could drop back to 30. We don't know. So what we don't want to do is constantly change prices and constantly, and we can't plan. We can't plan our business. We can't. So that's part of the issue too. So it's not only changing the tariff rates all the time, but it's changing how you do business. It's changing our relationship with our customer. We've built a great relationship with our customers, both retailers and consumers, because we make great products. We try to deliver them at a fair price. Nobody in the craft industry is getting rich. Your plumber, your electrician at home that's coming out to fix your air conditioner, fix your leaky faucet or whatever, they probably make more money than anybody in the craft industry. This is the reality. So, and those are great, hardworking people. They deserve to make all the money they can make. So, but the reality is that we have that trust, we have that relationship with our consumer. We want to keep that relationship with our consumer, and it's hard to have a relationship if you're always changing rules in the game. So we were talking the other day. I was talking with my boss, and we said, it's kind of like in football. If you're, if you can't, if you're playing a game of football, American football, soccer, whatever. So if you're playing a game of American football, and if I score a touchdown, it's 6 points, and then I get the extra, and then if I do the conversion, it's a 7 points, right? So you go into the tunnel or into the locker room at halftime, you come out and somebody says, well, those touchdowns now are only worth 2 points. And if you do a extra point, you have to kick it from the 40-yard line, and it's only worth 5 points. And so it's inverse. And then, in the fourth quarter, they changed the rules again. So you can't plan your business. You don't know strategy. You don't know how to run a business when the rules are always changing. So that's a big part of the problem.
It is, and a great football analogy, Denzel. Even I got that one.
Even you
Even though
got it. Right.
even though I'm not a football fan. I know soccer, but not American football.
Yeah.
Okay, so the next question is, why hasn't the US government made an exception for the craft industry? And I think you kind of already answered that a little
A
bit, but maybe you
little bit.
can expand more on this.
Yeah. So the 301 tariffs were, again, to circle back, I don't remember if I said this or not. 301 tariffs, I think I mentioned that they were like in the 70s. I don't remember exactly which year, but they were designed to level the playing field for unfair competition. And so some products have been tariffed at 301 tariff, that 25% 301 tariff that's been on for years. It was on under in the Biden administration. It was on in the first Trump administration. We were able to get exemptions for that because our products had a carve out. Although we're in the same HTS code as those big industrial products, we are not a big industrial product. We're a consumer product. So we were able to get a tariff exemption for that. And now the exemption is at risk of running out in mid-August. In mid-August, we're paying 30% today. Mid-August, we will be paying 55% on tariffs coming soon. And who knows if it's going to change again. So
Thank you. Thank you, Denzel. I was taking note of some follow-up questions.
sure.
So the next question is, how are other industries getting tariff relief? And why isn't the same happening to our industry?
Some industries, I know like right now, I totally get the strategy that the current administration is trying to do. And again, we're not talking politics, we're talking policy because again, to reiterate, policy and politics are two different things. Politics is who'd you vote for? I'm gonna donate money to them. For full disclosure, I've never donated a dime to anybody running for office. Nor has Spellbinders. So politics is a blood sport. Policy is about what affects bread on the table every day. Your job, my job, your passion, my passion, the eggs you buy, the food that you buy, everything that you do. So the many companies, when we reached out to a lobbyist to discuss our position, how we use lobbying is we call this guy who's a great guy. I know lobbyists are like attorneys, they get a bad rep in like, you think there's shady money behind every deal. Basically, he arranged meetings for us to meet with congressional representatives, senators, and congressmen so we could tell our stories. And that's your First Amendment right. Everybody has the right to tell their story. Everybody has free speech to say what they think. At the end of this discussion, you might you might disagree with me and you might say tariffs are the greatest thing ever. I'm going to support tariffs. That is completely your right, and I respect that right. We think that we need to have a reasonable tariff rate that is predictable and is not constantly changing. And so we want to make, again, it's about building that relationship with our consumer that we've trusted for years and years. How how other how other industries are getting tariff relief. Some are. Pharmaceutical industry, they make a pill for a dime and sell it for $100 in some situations, or $500 or whatever. They have enough margin in their products to where they can eat the tariffs. It's also true in some technology businesses where they don't have to necessarily pay for the tariffs or they don't have to raise prices in some situations. In other situations, they are having their influence, their level of influence is very different than ours. So we arrange meetings with congressional representatives or their office. We don't meet with the Ted Cruz's or the actual the Nancy Pelosi's, or we don't meet with those people. We meet with their staffs and their staffs who advise them on policy. And so we go in and we tell them, here's how these tariffs are affecting us. Here's what it's going to mean to our customer. And it's going to increase it's going to increase their overall inflationary challenges that people have stretching their paychecks. They're not going to be able to buy as much stuff, the passion that they follow, that they love making cards. But at the same time, our industry is so small that it really doesn't contribute to the national deficit or the trade imbalance or anything like that. So where high tech, your iPhone, your technology things, those are the things that that make all the difference. So they have different levels of access to the government. They are the people who are sitting down directly meeting with the congressmen and the senators and that kind of thing. So how how the tariffs are currently being handled is the president is going country by country, which I think this is a smart idea, um, to try and negotiate specific relationships with each country. So we talk about reciprocal tariffs. I know that's been a word that's been in the news lately too. So reciprocal tariffs, I think right now, I might be wrong, on certain categories, HTS codes, China has a very high reciprocal or a very high tariff on certain things that they want to protect, like cars, automobiles. They want to make their own cars. They have a high reciprocal tariff on cars. On arts and crafts products, they have a 10% tariff. So if we were to make something in the US and ship it to China, they have a 10% tariff on craft products that are imported into China. But yet we have a 30% tariff, soon to be 55% tariff on some things that are made in China, imported into the US. So what we are looking for is consistency and a reasonable tariff amount.
Thank you.
Mhm.
That is very informative, Denzel. So the next question, and again, I think you've already talked about this a little bit, but how does this tariff situation impact small craft businesses and independent creators?
Sure. Um, the the hardest part for me is probably the independent retailer. I love independent retailers. We really don't do, Spellbinders have gone as a company, as an organization, we've gone through different changes and evolutions as a business, as any business does. Um, there was a time period when I started here where we did most of our business was through chain stores, and now we do very, very little with chain stores. We have a little bit in our business is better because of our relationships with the independent retailers. We recognize that teach they teach consumers, they engage, they love what they do. Just a month ago in June, we were at an event where we were part of a buying group, and they had all the independent retailers come in to meet with everybody, and we did training and stuff, and just to see their faces and to hear what a what an impact we make on their businesses is really heartwarming. So again, I love entrepreneurs. I love you have such an entrepreneurial spirit, Yana, and a lot of the influencers have very entrepreneurial spirits. And to see somebody who puts their blood and sweat and tears into a business, and then we have to raise our prices to them. They have to raise their prices to consumer is then forced to make a decision. Do I buy this product or do I not? That's where it's tough. It does have a ripple effect with everybody. So there's no question about it. And these are really, really small. There's not a Chick-fil-A, this is somebody who does this and who has 2 or 3 or 4 employees. Some of the small independent brick and mortar stores might have 5 employees, but they're doing it out of their passion, out of their love. And that's the ones that it's going to affect them a lot too. So,
Yeah, and somebody who works long hours, not just,
so
regular hours and Saturdays and holidays. It's very sad.
and,
Um,
before you go on, I want to make sure that everybody recognize this is your channel. I appreciate you giving us the platform to do this, but I also want people to know this is a plug for you too. Yana is the hardest working person maybe that I've ever met. She's amazing. Not only is she super talented, incredibly gifted at what she does, but we are half a world away, and she is there. She's on the phone till 4 o'clock at night, which is like, or she's online chatting with us till 4 o'clock or whatever, which is what, 2 o'clock in the morning with you, or
Yeah.
And so weekends, evenings, holidays, she's working all the time. I mean, constantly. I'm you probably work 80 hours a week, maybe.
I love what I do. And
Yeah, I mean,
when
you
you
don't
love what
count
you
it.
do, you don't think of this as work.
Right. Yes.
It's
So on an hourly basis, you probably make less than that Chick-fil-A employee.
probably.
So yeah. So okay, go on.
The next question is kind of tough though.
Mhm.
Uh, and I think we already talked about this briefly in our internal spellbinders meeting, so
Sure.
I kind of know the answer to this one, but it hurts to ask this one. Is there a risk of supply shortages or delays due to tariffs?
There is I've had the good fortune of being in this industry for 30 years. Um, Prior to that, I was in a kind of an adjacent industry in the photography industry for many years as well. So doing creative stuff all my life. So after high school, I went to Navy. After Navy, I started in photography and, photo career, paper arts, crafting. I've seen a lot of stuff. We've been through 9/11. We've been through, the housing crisis in 2008. It's another maybe little recession in the teens, the 20 teens. And then obviously the pandemic disrupted the supply chain. This has the risk of crushing the industry. And I don't want to sound over dramatic or anything else, but this is probably the greatest risk of anything that I've seen because prices on everything are going up so fast. And, you get inflation that people have to make choices, right? Maybe one person on this call has unlimited funds, but I don't, you don't, people don't. You have to make decisions in your life what you're going to spend your money on. And when your electricity goes up, when the rent goes up, when your eggs go up, when gas goes up, when everything goes up, you only have so much money left over, and then I'm going to spend it on arts and crafts supplies. And so that is one factor. The other factor is, some of these companies now are closing down. Some of these manufacturers, things are not good in China either. So some of these factories in China have issues, and yeah, so there are supply chain issues. Like I told you earlier, like we discussed, the cost of freight went from $2,000 and was very competitive. You might even get a container for 1,800 bucks or whatever. And now it's six, seven, eight, $9,000 for a container. So freight goes up, all these things kind of build on each other and are real true challenges for the industry. So when you have the other companies out there, our friends at Altenew and Ranger and Concord Ninth and all these other companies who make arts and crafts supplies, the list goes on and on. Support them, support your local independent retailer. That's what we want, but it could right now the supply chain stuff is manageable, but I could see where everything's going to impact everything else. So
Yeah. So are companies moving production out of China to avoid those tariffs? And where are they going?
sure, yeah, we have moved stuff out of China. We've moved, like I said before, clear stamps, the stencils, all that stuff, we've moved out of China back to the US when you can, when it makes sense, when the quality is there, and when the price is right. Yeah, we do it. We have explored Vietnam. Vietnam has, there's a tariff. I don't think the tariff agreement is signed with Vietnam, but in principle, it's there. So right now, I believe what used to be 0% tariffs in Vietnam is now 20% tariffs, and I think that's what it's going to be. I don't think tariffs aren't going to go away. They've always been here. They will always be here. But the scale, the scope, and the level that they're at now is risking a lot of challenges to our industry. Our companies in the craft industry I'm talking about, in the craft industry, are companies flocking back to the US? No. There's a lot of things that you can't make in the US, and I'll talk about that here in a few seconds. However, with that said, I drive past a company called TSMC, Taiwan Semiconductor, that every day I drive it past them on the way to work here. They've been building 100 billion with a B, $100 billion factory that makes microchips here in Phoenix. And some of those kind of industries, yeah, those guys are coming back. And do we want those here? Yeah, we do. Do we want pharmaceuticals made in the US? Yeah, I want to know when I'm taking a prescription medication or an over-the-counter Tylenol or whatever, I want to know that's made in the US. If there's another pandemic, or if there's another global crisis or volcano blows up or whatever it is, yeah, I want those certain products to be made here in the US. I'd love for iPhones to be made in the US. I don't know if that'll ever happen, but there's been talk about it. I think they're exploring it, but I don't know if a decision's been made. But yeah, there's a lot of products that you do want to be made in the US. There's some arts and crafts products that, as of right now, there is no infrastructure. There's no ability to make them in the US. And could it go to another country? Sure, it's possible, but it's not going to be tariff free, because every country is going to have tariffs on it.
Okay. My next question is, why not just raise the prices to cover those tariff costs?
Sure, that's what's going to happen. So that's the reality. So I mentioned before, so I don't think I've given you this statistic. So spell miners, we used to be dies and machines, right? So now we have all kinds of products. So we actually, we, this will sound kind of crazy, and I don't think you know this, Yana. We work with 82 different suppliers, 82 different suppliers in 10 different countries. So,
I
so
did not know that. I mean, I knew we worked with a lot. I knew
yeah,
we worked with more than just China,
yeah,
but I did not comprehend that number.
yeah, it's crazy. So we try to go after the best quality products and the best at a competitive price. And we offer, we want to make the best stuff. We want it to be easy for our customers for them to get a great result. So we love our industry, and the prices are going to go up. So that's what we're trying to avoid. If everybody is okay with raising prices and having something that used to be, used to cost you $20, now it costs you $26 or $27. If you're okay with that, that's fine. We will do that. But we're trying to avoid that.
That's the goal.
Right.
Are any companies eating the cost of tariffs to keep the prices low for consumers? And I think you already talked a little bit about that.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, we have done that. We've eaten the cost. We have paid a ton of tariffs. We will this year, 2025, this year, we will have sold more. We've been doing a lot of really cool things at Spellbinders. With your help, with help from everybody, the engagement of our customers, we have been very fortunate to grow the business. So the business has grown. We've made mistakes along the way, no question about it. We've had problems with shipping. We address those issues. We try to get better as we move forward. We're a small business. We have small business problems. This year, we will probably end the year with more sales than we've ever had before in the history of the company. Thank you to everyone. And we will make no money. Nothing. We will make no money. And what we normally do with the profits that we do make, our owners get a little bit of that. Everybody here might get a little bonus. And then we take that money and put it back into the company, and we hire more people, and we innovate, and we come out with new products. And all of that stuff goes away. Nobody gets a bonus. Nobody makes any money. No more new products that's not already in the pipeline. So that's the kind of stuff it affects.
It's very sad.
Yeah.
Very sad.
Because we're paying a tax.
What is the difference between Section 301 tariffs and normal import duties?
Sure, sure. There's I don't normal import duties. I don't know if there is a so all there can be tariffs for any. You can make up a if you want to have a blonde Ukrainian tariff, you can have a blonde Ukrainian tariff. I think they make up tariffs for whatever reason. 301 is specifically for leveling the playing field, if you will. They're saying that's unfair. There's unfair production, or there's unfair um, manufacturing in China that the U.S. can't compete. There's nobody here making dyes anyway. So that's one of the reasons that we're able to get a 301 relief there. There are other tariffs in place right now. One is, and I might have these flip-flopped. One is there's a 10% tariff right now for fentanyl. That like the administration believes that and may very well be true. I don't know this. But that a lot of the components for fentanyl are made in China, shipped to Mexico. Mexico is turning these drugs, these raw materials into fentanyl, and then shipping to the US. And there's been, every year for the past, I don't know, 5, 6, 7, 8, 10 years, we've had 100,000 people in the US die from overdose of illegal drugs, fentanyl, and things like that. So it's a tragic situation. It does need to be addressed. I don't think tariffs are going to fix that problem. So because fentanyl is something that can be made from if you're a chemist, you can probably answer this way better than I can. Anybody watching Breaking Bad or whatever, you know that there's a lot of different chemicals that can be used, different ways to make fentanyl. A lot of industrial products from under your kitchen sink can be used to make fentanyl. So, and then there's another tariff out there that's 20%. That's how we get to the 30. And then there's a 301, which is 25%. And then some products have base tariffs, which are 3%, 5%, 8%, 12%, something like that. And then there's clothing. That clothing has had 20 some percent tariffs forever, for probably my whole life. And then luggage has tariff, so everything has tariffs that have been factored into the cost of making it for many, many years. What we're talking about are tariffs that have been wildly swinging one way or another, and we can't predict them, and we don't know what they are.
Okay. Has there been any progress on lobbying or industry efforts to get relief for the craft industry?
Yeah. So I mentioned the 301 tariffs. We did that. So for many years, we've had a 301 exemption on die cutting and die cutting products because, like I said, they were in that category of big industrial equipment. We defined them in a way to where we could get an exemption for consumer arts and crafts products. So that's kind of how that has worked. So we've done it in the past. And what we're asking, and that's why we went to visit Congress a few weeks ago to say, hey, we still have this issue. This is still going on. We'd love it if you guys can help us out. And right now, the climate in Washington is challenging, and so we thought that, and we when we did that post, we had a lot of people reach out to us and say, how can we help? And this is really the Cards for Congress thing is really a spinoff of how can we help. When our customers ask us, what can we do? You can reach out to your congressperson and your senators and your representatives and say, hey, this is hurting the thing that I love the most. Can you help us with it? That's your free speech. The same as it's your free speech right to say, hey, I love paying more tariffs. raise the price of those of my card making products. That's your free speech right as well. So whatever you choose to do, I support your choice to do that. We can disagree on what it is, but I support your right to do it.
Okay, perfect. Thank you, Denzel.
Mhm.
Are there alternative suppliers or products that are tariff-free and just as good? And the most pressing, burning question that I've seen in the comments, I
Yes,
think question that everybody wants to ask, why don't we make dyes in the US?
absolutely. That's probably, so this is kind of the crescendo. This is the peak, right? So this is why everybody asks. So there used to be, so die cut, making a dye is a process called photochemical etching. So that process is a common industrial process. It's used in a lot of different places. It's used in a lot of different industries. A lot of products that you have at home have products that are made using photochemical etching. Just like I told you earlier about the paper mills basically telling us we don't want your business. Um, there are photochemical etching is kind of, if you think of it as like being a woodworker, okay? So I can be a rough carpenter, right? So I can frame houses, and that's one skill set. And then I can also be a finished carpenter, which I do the cabinets and the trim in the house. That's a different skill set. Or I can make furniture. That's another skill set. So there's all these different skill sets when it comes to like photochemical etching. So that process, there are photochemical etchers in the US. There are factories that do it in the US, and they make parts for Boeing and airplanes, and they make car parts for Tesla. Um, there's probably, I might be off, but I'm guessing that there's probably 40 or 50 photochemical etching factories in the US, and none of them make dyes like consumer dyes like we make. There used to be one company that did that. I have contacted many of those factories. One in Indiana that I know, a couple in California. There's a few. There's a second one. There was one that was here in Phoenix, and I'll talk about here in a second. There's another one here in Phoenix that I've reached out to them, and they all have. I'm gonna look for a prop here. Let's see, dyes underneath here, but uh, basically, none of them either they haven't answered any requests, calls, emails, voicemails, texts, or the ones that have said, hey, we have no interest in doing that at all. Because they are taking they might take a sheet of, they might take, if this were a die, this would be it would be a pretty big die, but it would probably sell for $49, $39. If it's half that, maybe that sells for $29, right? They're selling that photochemical etch product for $100. They're selling this for $150. So the cost, because it's going in an airplane or it's going in a car or it's going in some other industrial product. So oh, thank you so much. So yeah, so here, dies. So this die this is what size is this? This is an S5. So what does this sell for? 39 bucks, give or take a little bit. So this die would probably cost, if anybody wants a die made in the US, I'll happy to do it. This die would probably cost you 80, 90, $100 easily. That's what we would pay from the factory, not what we would sell it for. But we would pay, 80, 90, $100 for something like this. So there was a factory here locally in Phoenix that made dies. That's the reason Spellbinders is in Phoenix. Spellbinders started in Cleveland, Ohio, and Jeff and Stacy, when they started the company, they moved the whole company to Phoenix because the people that made dies were right down the street from us. I've been to that factory many times until it closed last year. So that factory made dies, and they were super expensive, really expensive. Some people use them, and the detail, the cutting edge on the die was not nearly the quality of what we can get from China. So the China product is way better product quality, and it's a third the price, is the reality. So those dies were really good for aperture dies, open aperture dies. So if you're just cutting an outside edge, those dies were fine for that. But they couldn't get the blade thickness thin enough, because the thicker the blade, the more pressure that it takes, the harder it is to cut. So they couldn't get blades thin to do detailed dies like we like you like our customers like. So if you're doing an aperture die, they're fine to do that. But they're way more expensive. If you're doing a detailed die, half the time they didn't even work. So we tried to use them. They made our stamps, they made our stencils until they went out of business, or they made part of them. The other factory that we use is another company located here in Phoenix that makes stencils and makes stamps. And so we do manufacture as much as we can in the US. When it comes to dies, so trust me, we have gone through the whole exercise. We looked at opening our own factory in the US. I'm going to run down the math with you real quickly of what it would cost to that. Before I get to the math on the die factory, I was reading an article. So we're in Arizona, Phoenix, obviously, right? There's a lot of copper in Arizona, right? So copper, everybody knows copper. It's in your wiring and it's in your products. It's electricity, copper, big in Arizona. So I was reading an article this weekend that talked about copper mining because it's a big deal in Arizona. The time that it takes to open a copper mine from the time I write up my proposal and give it to the EPA until the time the EPA comes back and says, okay, you can now open your copper mine, is 29 years. 29 years. That's your
How is that
government.
even possible? 29
That's
years.
your efficient government at work. So before I even talk about the costs of doing that, the regulations behind opening a factory in the US is insane. We did look at it. We explored it. So with that, uh Yana, you've known me for a very long time. How many days have I been in a bad mood?
Never. Gosh, I envy your good mood, to be honest. Not a
So
single day. I have, even the day when you broke your foot helping me move my furniture, you were not in bad mood.
Right. Trying to say, yeah, so if I have a weakness, it's probably that I'm an eternal optimist. It's like, I think, I might deal with the reality of a bad situation, but I think there's going to be a positive outcome of it. So, right. So, even though we knew it would probably be an uphill battle, we explored making dies in the US. So if you look at it, okay, so the think about just going to walk through a big picture of what it would mean doing that. So the first thing you would do is you go buy a piece of land. Okay. So a piece of land, you'd need between 1 and 2 acres to do a dime factory. And you'd need to be in a metropolitan area, right? So someplace that has some population. If you look all over the country, if it's Phoenix, it would probably cost you from $3 million to $10 million for a piece of land that would be big enough to and commercially zoned to be able to do that. Okay, so $3 to $10 million just to buy a piece of land. Then you have to start. You do your design process, probably two, three, four, $500,000 to do the design of the building in the facility. The building is probably $3 to $5 million to do that. So now we have a piece of land. We have there's my girl. So we have a piece of
I
land.
need to switch to switch the view because other people were not seeing my kitty. Sorry, guys.
Okay.
Little interruption. These are at my foot and they're playing with a cable to the laptop and unplugging it all the time. So
That's funny.
no more
Oh, you're
interruption.
fine. You're fine. You're fine. So now we have the land, the permit, all that kind of stuff. Then I have to buy the equipment, right? Guess where I'm going to buy the equipment to make dies from? From China. So, so the only place in the world that makes that equipment is in China, the etching equipment. So it defeats the purpose a little bit. And that equipment is, $3.5 million or so, something like that. Then you have to build a water treatment facility because of the contaminated water that comes off of the manufacturing process of this. And the water treatment facility is probably another $1 million. And then who knows how it could take 29 years. I'm assuming it's going to take 2, 3, 4 years to get the permitting from the EPA to actually be able to build this building. So, and then in that 2, 3, 4 years, now we're paying all these tariffs and we have no money to actually build the building and make the dies and all that kind of stuff. So that's a separate story. And so now I'm ready to make this. And being from Ohio, I mentioned earlier, we saw the steel industry decimated by policies from the 70s, 80s, 90s that basically destroyed the steel industry. So the type of steel that is used to make dies isn't made in the US. So now I have to buy this steel from China. And so, and the chemicals that I use to make this steel, they're from China too. And so, as you can see, it's not as easy as saying, let's just open a factory in China. So, it's going to take me, if I hated everything and I just wanted to make it here in the US, I'm going to need about 10, $12 million to do that, which nobody in our industry has. And I'm probably going to need 3, 4, 5 years with construction, land acquisition, EPA regulation, building a water treatment facility, and to get back to where we are today. So it's a long-term play. It's a long-term vision. It's a long-term thing. If the government gives us proper assistance in that, if the government is a partner with this, that could be something that we could explore. However, just like I said earlier, there was a company here that made dyes, and the quality of their dyes were not nearly as good. And I've been to that factory. They're literally down the street from us here. I was personal friends with the guy who ran the factory. We'd have lunch, once a month, once every 2 months. Great guy. They did a lot of other work for us. They didn't make our dyes. Um, the factory was, most people have this conception that America's factories are fantastic and Chinese factories are disgusting. And that is completely opposite in this case. The U.S. manufacturing here, the factory that did make dyes, the photochemical etching that were done here, there's there they're not that clean. They were not that well maintained. They had a really difficult time finding staff for them. That was probably one of the big reasons that they closed, is they couldn't find enough people to actually manufacture the dyes and work in the factories or work in the factory. And it was it was not clean. The stamp area was clean. The lasers where they make all of the stencils, those were clean. The photochemical etching area where they made the dyes was very dirty and was a really difficult business. Contrary, when I go to China, the factories that we use are they're white glove, masks. Nobody in the US factory had masks. Nobody had personal protection equipment. I've been to other factories in the US where that's a rare thing. You go to China, everybody's got the gloves on, everybody's got masks on, everybody's got goggles on. It's white, clean rooms. The facility, you could eat off the floor in some of them. There are some that are not as clean, that are closer to the US one. But so the quality of the product, they're able to get those really super thin lines, which allows you to get more detail, which allows you to make greater cuts. It's really a fascinating process to see it all come about. So their quality is phenomenal. They've been doing this for years and years. And another thing too is like the craft industry isn't so big that we keep these factories busy all the time. The factories that make our dyes make tons of other things. So that's one of the problems. Like if you bring something back to the US, if you want to start a factory that's making dyes, there's not enough production, there's not enough dye business to keep a factory busy all the time. We'd have to get into making other things as well, which that's not really our business. So there are a lot of challenges in doing that. So I would love it. We've done it with everything that we can bring back to the US. We've certainly done it. We have those conversations with US factories now, ones that want to work with us, get our business. Ranger, great company. Superior, great company. The guys that make our dyes or make our stamps and our stencils, fantastic companies. There's people in Georgia that make stamps, people in Illinois that make stamps. Stamps a great business. They do really good quality work, great companies to work with. Dyes, that process is a little different story. So I hope that I hope that answers most of it. And I know that's probably been the biggest question that we get is like, why don't you just bring the factory back? And it's like, yeah, okay, if anybody wants to pony up 10 or 12 million bucks, we'll you can be a partner.
If only things were that easy.
Right.
Yeah. Okay, my next question, and again, I think you have talked about this a little bit. How do tariffs affect innovation and the launch of new products in the craft space?
Sure. The in any business that's making consumer products like this, the number one cost of your product is, or the number one cost of your business is probably people, so it's headcount, people, and product, the cost of the product. And then you have all these other costs, the rent, the electricity, freight, we factor the cost of tariffs in the cost of the product. So the first things that typically suffer are in any business, you hear about layoffs and stuff like that. Um, uh, we don't want to do that. We have no plans on laying people off, but you know, um, we're a little bit out. We run a really good business. We have really smart people here. We have great people here. We make fantastic products. We um, we have people like you promoting our products, learning, teaching people, educating. We have great customers. We have everything going right now. We have no plans to lay anybody off, but the two biggest areas that you have, when you make no money or when you start losing money, the things that you have to cut out are people and innovation, are kind of the two things that are first on the chopping block, because you have to pay your rent, you have to pay your electricity, you have to pay the freight out. So we have to pay the USPS, UPS, all the freight out, or else product doesn't get out. So the only things you can do are cut people and cut innovation. Innovation is suffering because, first of all, I do a lot of that, and now I have to spend a lot of my time talking about tariffs, working on where can we move manufacturing? Where can we take manufacturing? How can we bring it back here in the US? Is that even an option? So when I'm not doing all that stuff, I'm not innovating. I'm not doing the next better press, or not doing the next product that we have.
And
So
just for context, Denzel is the vice president of product development at
yeah.
Spellbinders.
And like you said, we're a small company. Everybody wears a lot of hats. I wear so many hats, I lost all my hair. So
I love that joke.
it never gets old, right?
Never, never. Okay, so the next question, are other countries facing the same tariff issues with China?
That's up to them. It's a country by country. So now I'm going to say something that's probably going to piss off um, half the people in this audience, is that the reality. So we're owned by a company that owns other companies. And we had an event where we had a guest speaker or guest speakers to talk about business, to talk tariffs was one of the hot subjects there. So we talked about tariffs, and this guest speaker, he is a professor at Wharton School of Business, so super smart guy, way smarter than me. He's Chinese, so he's born in China, grew up in China, now lives in the US, now teaches business and talks about, he's written books and is super smart guy. And and I'm going to repeat what he says, and I kind of agree with it, is that the United States has allowed for a prolonged period of time, allowed itself to be taken advantage of when it comes to tariffs, where we have charged little to no tariffs on almost every for almost every country. High tariff would be, for our products would be 5 to 8% or so. And clothing and some things might be a little bit higher on certain things. But a lot of products have no tariffs at all in the US, where other countries charge a lot of tariffs, 10%, 15%, 20% tariffs. So it is time to level the playing field. Nobody's arguing with that. So when we talk about reciprocal tariffs, there should be some quid pro quo, so there should be some, oh, I don't know, did we just lose Yana? Did the lights go out? She's frozen on my screen. I'm still moving around. Are we still live? All right. Sorry, wait, I don't know if you can hear me, but looks like Yana's frozen on our screen. I don't know if there's a power outage in Ukraine or what's going on, but we'll get back up and going here as soon as we can. There she is.
Hey, Denzel, let me double check because I just lost electricity and because of that, I lost internet on my mobile data. Electricity is back, but it's going to take some.
She's live, still live. You're still live. Okay, cool. I guess we're still live. Okay, so I'll keep talking while Yana goes through this.
Me.
So while she figures out the electric on her end, we'll see how this goes. So yes, so tariffs in other countries, the US we've been a little lackadaisical. We've been promoting the free market, which I believe in, and I think that's great. It is fantastic that so many countries have developed and people are bettering themselves. But um, I think it is time that there's some reciprocity. So do we need tariffs? We don't need 170% tariff. We don't need 55% tariffs. We don't need 30% tariffs. We need a reasonable tariff strategy or reasonable tariff policy that is predictable for businesses so we can continue to innovate. We can figure out where the right place is to make products and open economies and markets. And so each country kind of has their own strategy. And I know, like I mentioned before, the current administration is still trying to negotiate individual trade agreements with each country. I think this weekend they were working on Europe and the UK. And so that's going to vary a little bit with each country. And I don't have all those details. Today I'm talking about the US. So.
Okay, thank you. Another question, and I've seen many of those in the chat. Is there any light at the end of the tunnel?
Well, if you want,
Could tariffs go away soon?
so if you want a big, bright sunshine and
To
rainbow,
my home network. Can you hear me okay?
yeah, I can hear you. You're a little delayed,
Did
but
you?
you're
Okay,
okay now.
cool. Did you hear my question?
Yeah, I did. So,
Okay. 'Cause I didn't hear your answer, so I wasn't
okay.
sure if we're still okay.
Okay, sorry. So,
Go ahead.
if you want a big, bright sunshine and a rainbow and a unicorn at the end of it, that doesn't exist. But if you, the reality is tariffs aren't going to go away. I think we talked to a lot of experts. We try to get a lot of different opinions, and the only thing that is consensus, unanimous opinion is tariffs are here to stay. That's going to cause the cost to go up on things, and we want it to be manageable. We want it to be reasonable. We want it to be a relationship that allows us, if tariffs are going to go up, a reasonable area would be 10%, what China's charging us on our crafts materials. We should charge them on their craft materials. As far as a resolution, I hope it's sooner rather than later. And that's part of what we want this campaign to be. Hopefully, use your voice to speak your voice. Whatever you feel is what you feel, and you should own it, and you should relay it to your elected officials. They represent you. So I hope that you do that. Whatever your stance is, whatever your position is on these, we want tariffs to be reasonable. We want tariff relief from the 55 to 170% tariffs. We need that help.
Yes, yes, we do. As a consumer, why, and I think you've answered this, but as a consumer, why should I care about something like tariffs? What's the bigger picture?
Sure, great question. I'm not opposed to tariffs as I think there's only one thing that we don't pay taxes on. When you wake up in the morning and you take your first breath in the morning, you don't pay taxes on that air. But you look over at your alarm clock, you're paying taxes when you bought the clock, with the electricity on the clock, you pay the taxes on your food, on your job, on your work, on your house, you pay taxes on everything, right? And we need taxes to do the business of the government and do the things that we want the government to do. If they're going to increase taxes, tariffs in some areas, a la tariffs, if that's going to go up, then income taxes need to go down, or some other taxes need to go down, because people are paying enough taxes. We need to be able to have a manageable tariff policy that makes it reasonable, because you don't want to pay more for your products. You don't want to pay more for the things that you love to do. And you all of a sudden you can't do your arts and crafts passion because the cost of everything else is also going up. And if this goes up as well, that's bad for people. So,
Okay, thank you. And then the last question from my list, I know we have other questions from
sure,
the
I got
people
it.
who are watching live.
Fresh list.
Yes, the last question. What can consumers or fans of crafting do to help advocate for this change? What
Sure.
can we do?
Sure. We started the Cards for Congress. And one thing that I found in this process, I love politics as an observer. As like I said, I've never participated in a campaign. I've never put a yard sign in my yard. I've never done any of that kind of stuff. I like the topics. So I'm not pro team red. I'm not pro team blue. Like to look at each individual. Jan and I, we're a lot alike. We like specific. Tell me about a category. Tell me about a specific topic, and I will give you my opinion on a topic. And I don't want to buy into a groupthink mentality. That's me personally. If you buy into groupthink mentality, that's okay. That's fine. I want to look at each individual topic and say, I agree with this. I disagree with that. I agree with this. I disagree with that. So that's all we're asking from you. If you agree with if you want a reasonable tariff policy that's not changing 8 times in 7 months and going from 0% to 10% to 30% to 55% to 170%, back to 55, back to 30. If you don't want that, if you think it makes too much challenge for us as a manufacturer, for you as a consumer, write your congressman and tell them about that. One thing that I was really surprised about in this whole process is, a lot of people got mad at us. Me, in particular, I was pushing this about they don't want politics in their craft. I totally get that, and I 100% agree with that. This is not a political issue. We're not saying elect this guy or elect that gal or anything, or donate to this person or donate to that person. This is about a policy that makes a difference in a lot of people's lives. And this is a policy that we've been to Democrat representatives, we've been to Republican representatives, and we've actually met with an independent representative. And they all, listen, and I was surprised by that, quite honestly. They all were shockingly very compassionate and listened to. There were some that disagreed with us. There's a few that when we told our story, we said this is how it's going to impact our industry and our particular businesses. Some of them were like, hey, that's on you. That's your problem, not ours. There are a few that were empathetic but didn't have any solutions. The vast majority were of the representatives that we talked with, both Republican and Democrat and independent, were all, hey, we hear you. We can help you. We're going to do something about it. And so we're going to talk to our people and we're going to try to figure this out. And since then, we've had follow-ups with them and we've given them our HTS categories, some of them, and we've said, these are the categories that we'd like you to look into and see if we can find some agreement on, and let's get an exemption for these categories and stuff. So right. So that was a handful of companies with a handful of legislators. If you can write card, make a card, nice card, offending card. I know it's very tempting to give them a piece of your mind, but let's not do that. So let's get above that. Let's get above the politics. And let's talk about the policy. Let's talk to people like they're our friends, because they are. These people that live in many of them live in our districts, live close by, and they are there to represent us. If they voted for you or if they didn't, if they have different ideas than you do, they're still humans. And so let's talk to them in a reasonable manner. We put together the Cards for Congress idea to allow you to give you the ability to streamline the process to give your position or state your peace of mind. So if you go to our website, if you go on our social media, there'll be a link to a landing page where, as I think step one is make your cards. Okay, so you can have, so in the U.S., you have 2 senators, whatever state you live in, you have 2 senators, and you have 1 Congress. So make a card for them. There's also, and we have step 2 is finding them. And so we also have a link in there how you can find their addresses, which is pretty easy to do. You type in your address and it tells you who your representatives are. It tells you those 3 people. Then step 3, I think, is as a contact at the White House. You can make a card for somebody there, contact at the Treasury, because they're kind of the ones in charge of tariffs, or tariff policy, I guess. And then, so you can send them cards. And then we also have a PDF that's on the site that you can actually load the PDF and you can see what else. So when you look at their address, they'll also give you a phone number. Write down those phone numbers and give them, say, here's, and we have to tell you what to say. You want to be brief, want to get your position across. You want a reasonable tariff policy. So, and they have interns at the desks of all these people. They're taking calls and they're writing down.
Hey, Denzel, I hate to interrupt, but I can hear that your sound is now really garbled, and I see people are saying the same in the comments. I'm not quite sure why. Can you say something? Maybe we can do a little test. Yeah, I cannot hear you. Can you guys let us know in the comments if you can still hear Denzel or not? And I just added a link to the Cards for Congress page on the Spellbinders website to the description of this video. So if you reload the video, you'll be able to find that link in there. And if you go to that page, I'm just going to briefly repeat what Denzel said because the audio really wasn't that good. So if you go to that page, there's a six-step process, 6 steps what you can do to help. Hold on, I'm getting something from Olus. Olus?
Yeah, is loud and clear, no Denzel.
Okay, Denzel, can you try and say something? Oh gosh, I think we completely lost you. Like I can see that your lips are moving, but there's no sound.
Connect Denzel to the,
Okay, let's try and reconnect Denzel to the meeting. How do I do that?
I will ask him to leave and then.
Okay, Olus is doing something with Gavin behind the scenes. So if you guys can hold tight for a little bit, and while we are waiting, there was well, there were many questions, but there was one question in particular that I wanted to mention to Denzel. Gina K asked is there any information about your trip to DC, Denzel? Information for the companies that were not included, and she would like to learn more about what you did there and what you learned. So, okay, Denzel is trying to reconnect now, so let's just wait a second. I'm so sorry, guys, about the technical issues. Like, I love to do videos, but live is not my strong suit. I will do a live if there's like somebody else organizing everything. This is like a second live that I've done on my channel. So thank you for your patience. I appreciate it. Let's just wait another minute or two for Denzel to come back, and hopefully the audio issues will be fixed. Today has been very informative. Whenever I get a chance to speak with Denzel, I'm like a sponge. I absorb all of the information from him because he is a wealth of information. And like Denzel said, we don't always agree on everything, but I'm always eager to learn from him because he knows so much, and especially regarding our industry and all the things and the tariffs in particular. Okay, hopefully Denzel can join us. Olis, are you getting any information from?
Yes, they are reloading the system for now.
Okay, so they are reloading the computers, I guess, in the Spellbinder studio. And I have just admitted Gavin. And well, Denzel, there we go. Can't hear you. Denzel? No.
Oh, can you hear me now?
Yes. Yes.
We're back.
Perfect. Thank you. Thank you so much for your help, guys.
No worries. Sorry about that. We're crafters, right?
Exactly. I'm not a tech person.
Right. Cool. Excellent. So, you, so you were able to, when we were off, when we had our little hiatus, you answered, I assume you answered the whole, Cards for Congress, the web landing page and all that kind of stuff, right?
Yeah. There is a
Okay.
link in the description. Yeah, I already talked about that. So we can move on to the next question.
Okay, cool. So do you have some questions? Oh, yeah. I'm listening to Skylar over here, Scotty. Great. No, that's a great question. I'm glad that answered. So somebody asked if I mail cards today, it won't get to their legislators by August 1st. Is that a problem? The way, so what we are, that's a great question. You can email, you can write cards, you can send things anytime. Right now is is key. You don't do it as soon as possible, but if you say I'm not going to get it till August, it's not going to be there till August 5th or August 10th, that's okay too. So here's how it works is Congress, they do certain things at certain times and they focus on things at different times. So right now, they got the one big beautiful bills behind them. And so right now they are focusing on tariffs. So their issue at hand, every day they're talking about tariffs. the impact of tariffs, all that kind of stuff. So the sooner you get something to them, they do listen. They listen, they take in consideration what we're asking, what you're asking, and they make their decisions accordingly. So what we're not asking for is not a law. If we wanted a law to change this, it would take us 6 years to do that or 10 years to do that. It would take forever. So for them to write an exemption can be done at any time. We're asking you right now, so it's on the front of your mind, it's on the front of their mind, because August 15th, the tariffs, the 25% comes back. So tariffs are going to be raised again in August 25th. So we're asking of you, if this is an important subject for you, if it's not, don't worry about it. Then if it's an important subject to you, make a card, send a card, do something today as possible or as soon as possible to get that message out there, to reach out to them. If you love the tariffs, like I said, that's your First Amendment right to go tell them that you want to keep these tariffs. So what we're asking is do it as soon as possible, because then they can do exemptions at any time. But if they get a large voice from our community, they're most likely to do it sooner rather than later. So those exemptions could extend the exemption that's going to expire on the 25th of August, or rewrite it, or they could also impact the tariffs that are currently on the books now. When we get product in, sometimes the product goes out the door right away. We get it in and goes right out. Sometimes it's here and it stays here for a little while. Most manufacturers have not taken price increases. So all the tariffs that we have paid, you're not really seeing a lot of that yet, but you are going to, I promise you. So I promise that, in the coming months, if nothing changes in the coming months, manufacturers aren't going to be able to do what they're doing now, and things will change and go and probably continue to go up. So I have a couple questions here. I'll go through mine, and Yana, you can jump in, or Skylar, you can jump in too. What was or will the outcome of your visit with the congressman be? So we went, a small group of companies from the industry went to explain the situation that we're in with congressional people. And it was overall, I think it was very productive. Like I said before, we had a few people that weren't interested. They listened, but they're like, that there's nothing we're going to do about that. And that was a handful, just a couple, and a couple that weren't that were sympathetic, but said they really couldn't do a whole lot. And then the vast majority said that they're going to work on it. Who knows how that works? What that did in the past, we did exactly the same thing several years ago behind the scenes. We did that, and a few weeks or a couple months went by, and that's when we got the exemption. So it does take time. They do listen. They may or may not be able to do an exemption this time. We don't know. There's no guarantees. But we certainly want to make our voice heard. I want to express to our lawmakers, how we feel, what we think about tariffs, and how it impacts our business and our customers, more importantly. And so we don't know yet. We don't know yet. That's still yet to be determined, I guess. Beyond the tariffs, I'm hearing that the entire way items are imported are changing. Does that affect crafting as well? I'm not sure exactly what that means, but the way items get here, you either have a seaport or an airport. Items are either brought in by ocean, unless it's Canada or Mexico. Items are either brought here by ocean or they're brought here by air. Both ocean and air are very, very expensive now. Air is still way more expensive than ocean shipment. And then you add tariffs on top of that. There's no other method to get products here. You might be referring to, many manufacturers used to take possession of the product in China. So when it gets on a boat, or an airplane, when it gets on the boat, let's say, we own it when it's on the boat and it's shipped here. And then when it lands in Long Beach or wherever port, we happen to use Long Beach. When it lands in Long Beach, we pay the tariffs. Like I said before, we pay the tariffs, to be perfectly clear. Nobody else pays the tariffs. That is a very common method of importing. It's called FOB. And then there's another method that where the factory is shipping products from China to here, and the factory is paying the tariffs, and then you pay the factory for the product and the tariffs. The net result technically is the same. What we have heard, and I've read articles about it, is that some of the factories are fabricating the costs, or the tariff importers are changing the costs, which can affect the tariffs that they pay. And I would just be wary of that. I think that is an issue for factories. If you're then buying it from a Chinese factory, and they're doing fishy stuff on the back end, you don't want to be in that. You don't want to be caught in that mix. The best thing to do is pay your taxes, pay when the government has a tariff, when the government has a tax, anything like that, you want to pay what is rightfully due, and you don't want to skirt that at all. So I hope that answers the question. There's another question here. I would like to know more about how tariffs are affecting the crafting world and the options to ease those imports. I know I can't order on certain items overseas anymore. So it is complicated, a little bit. So technically, if we import something from China, we haven't had to do this a lot in the past. So what I say, the principle is correct, but the practice might be a little bit wonky. I'm not 100% sure, because for a long time, tariffs were such a small percentage of what of the cost of the product that we didn't have to worry about it a whole lot. So technically, Canada, Mexico have 0% tariffs from China. So I know Mexico does. I think Canada is 0 or next to nothing. So if I make something in China and I import it into the US and I have to pay 30 or 55 or 100% tariff on it, and then I ship it to Canada, I have that cost built into the product in Canada. I believe, again, this is the principle part, not the practice part. In principle, if I export it to Canada, I believe that there's a way where we could get that 30 or 55 or 100% tariff back through application, filing a form with the government or something, so that when we export it from the US into Canada, if it's made in China, it would have 0% tariff on it there, but it would have a tariff from the US to Canada on it. So there's some of those kind of weird loophole kind of things that have been rounding errors. If something has a 2% or 3% tariff on it, or 5%, it's not worth your time filling out the paperwork. So you just kind of eat it. But the first part of your question, is it going to limit your assortment? Yeah, it probably is. So it's probably going to limit the number of products, the number of designs. I know that we're scrutinizing everything that we have now. Dyes are a big part of our business, big part of what we do. It's our passion. It's what we love doing. But we still have to look at everything with a very critical eye, and that, do we want to do this? Is it worth it? Are we going to sell enough to make it worth it? We'll take less chances. We'll take less risks. So will it impact your creativity? Yeah, probably. Not only by the bottom line, you're going to pay more for your craft products, but it's also going to probably reduce some of the selection, some of the assortment. The weird thing is too, is like what we tried to explain to when we were meeting with our representatives. We had it wasn't a script, but it was kind of like this. We had gone through it, and we talked about it. What we talked about is our ecosystem of products. So I know everybody in the industry knows that you might use a dye from us and you're going to use Ranger's inks and you're going to use Concord ninth paper and you're going to use Altenew, their stencils or whatever to make your finished card, right? So we have this ecosystem of products that is products that's made in the US, that's made in China, that might be made in Sweden, that might be made wherever. So you have this ecosystem of products that you use to make a finished card. So when and if we get to the point where products from China are not even a thought, because die manufacturing is not coming back to the US anytime soon. If there's no die cutting, that's going to negatively impact stamping. And that's going to negatively impact inks. And that's going to negatively impact, like, as an example, even though like Ranger makes all of their embossing powders in the US, but there is no heat tool made in the US to do your heat embossing. So what's going to happen to the embossing powder business when there's no heat tools to set your heat emboss? That's going to go away. So that's going to negatively impact US companies. So the unforeseen consequences are going to negatively impact the greater community. So China had a very long approach in manufacturing and doing business, and it's done very well. We need to have a very long approach in how do we get manufacturing back to the US. And what things do we want to make in the US and what things do we not want to make in the US? Those are some of the critical questions that we need to ask and answer. So another question, since Congress is on their August recess, is it this is the best time to send cars to DC? I think I already answered that. Yes, it is still a good time. Do it as soon as possible. We need to influence and get them. They noodle on things. They're like me and like Yana. We noodle on things for a little while and we think about it, and then we will say our opinion and try to get through there. So, more questions? Yippee! Oh, there's one here too. I'd love for Denzel to talk about how we live in a global economy and the world, even if product could be moved to the US, raw materials come from all over. Absolutely. Yeah, so so we make some wood block stamps on the hero art side. We make some of those wood block stamps in Vietnam. Actually, Aaron, who is a great guy I've known for a very long time, Aaron, who owned Hero Arts. He actually helped the guy in Vietnam learn how to make stamps because they're having manufacturing capacity issues, production issues, all those kind of issues in California. And so the guy who's Taiwanese, he owns a factory in Vietnam, makes the stamps in Vietnam. The wood that he uses comes from Canada and the US. The rubber that he uses comes from South America, and then they make the stamps and then they import them back to the US. So he ships wood over from the US to Vietnam, makes the wood, brings it back to the US. The supply chain is certainly global. It is crazy. You can't imagine how interconnected things are all over the world. Even things like, let's say we wanted to make the machine, and we've looked at doing that too. Let's say we wanted to make a P6, a Platinum 6 in the US. All those bearings still come from China. The rolled steel still comes from China. The plastic pellets are going to come from China. So all of that stuff is going to come from China anyway, and it's going to cost $400 to make one machine because we don't make that many machines. So you look at the global supply chain, it's crazy how it all works. And it's a well-oiled machine. That's why you saw during COVID, the supply chain was super, super disrupted. We were very fortunate because I'm not very good about patting myself on the back, but we were very fortunate about COVID because I had personal relationships with a lot of the factories, and I spent every evening on the factory, on a phone call, on a video call like this, calling in favors for factories. Hey, we've been good partners. You owe us one. Can you make this? I know you have things in the queue. You only have so many raw materials. Can you do this favor for us? And we were able to weather COVID pretty well, with the exception of the supply chain disruptions on the logistics side. So the shipping, the freight, the containers sitting off the Long Beach Pier and stuff. So that's where we ran into our challenges. Getting products made, we were pretty good about that. But so it was an interesting time, and I think that there's probably some more of those times ahead for us. But between rising tariffs and stolen design by Temu, AliExpress, etc., the question is, how can any company thrive and survive? That's great. That's another good question. So Temu, AliExpress, and all those knocking off our designs, that happens a lot. Fortunately, I probably shouldn't even talk about it because people go check it out. But the reality is, we launch a new product. What happens is like, and we have actually tracked down some of this stuff, is like we launch a new product and it's on our website and it's coming soon. So this is one example of one thing that's happened that we've been able to track. And Olus, who's off screen here, he's our pit bull when it comes to enforcing. There's my hero. All right. So
I might interrupt you a little bit. So when it comes to our website, so when it comes to coming soon, what we are trying to do, we are trying to search the first days that appears on our website. We are trying to search all over the platforms for the counterfeit products, and we are reporting them. We're working closely with Alibaba counterfeit program. We are working closely with other companies who helps us to take those listings down. So we are working on that, but definitely there is an issue, and Denzel can describe it more, I think.
So you nailed it. So Olus is our pit bull when it comes to enforcement, and I'm glad that we have Olus to do that. It's sad that we have to have Olus to do that, if that makes sense. So I wish that we didn't have to do that. So early on, we tracked down one situation, and correct me if I'm wrong on this, Olus, but we found one what do you call it, like bad person who was in Russia, who was actually taking screenshots of our products when it's in coming soon. And then they were working with a factory in China. The factory in China probably didn't even know. And they were making counterfeit products. So like if we had a die, they would do a screenshot from it and then do an auto trace on Illustrator and send the factory in China the artwork. And they would make the die, and the die was so poor quality that lots of times it didn't even cut, or it wouldn't work right, or it's the wrong size, the scale was wrong. And then we would get customer calls telling, or it was a die and they actually made a stamp. And that happens too. So it's totally the wrong product. And so we get customer calls saying, I bought this on Temu and it's the wrong size or it's the wrong die. And it's like, well, it's not even from us. So there are
but we
lots
can
of
still understand that customers, because on Temu, on AliExpress, they would say this is a Spellbinders product. They're using our trademark as well. So
yeah. So that is an issue. It's not related to tariffs. It's a separate discussion that we need to have, and we have had with some of our representatives too. And I know they're trying to address it. That's another big challenge that exists in the industry. It's not really related to tariffs at all, but it's another challenge that we have to overcome. So and we have found some workarounds with our friend Olus there, who helps us do these things. So he's our enforcer. So we're really proud of the work that he does, and he does a great job of doing it. Yeah.
We can't hear anything.
I believe Skylar just reads some questions too.
Do we have links for
People want to send links of counterfeit products.
Oh,
What would the easiest way for them to do that be?
you guys want to
Yeah.
help us out. All right. So Olus, how could they help us out? Olus scans a lot of that. So
Yes, so actually it will help us a lot if you can report us products on Amazon, on AliExpress and platforms like that. Amazon and AliExpress works great with counterfeit removing process. So if you could just email us the links you found, like with the products you saw, like copy it from our. So it will be great. And I don't know, Skylar, what kind of email you might suggest?
just go through customer support, and then they
Yeah,
can.
customer support, maybe ask for that email to be forwarded to Olus.
Yeah.
I don't know.
And then
That-
customer support can forward on to Olus, and he can take care of
Yeah.
it. Good job. Good question.
Or we can create like in the future, we can create special email for that, like forwarding thing.
Are tariffs affecting our cardstock products?
Tariffs affecting cardstock. Great question. Yeah. Tariffs affected everything. So when we started the cardstock program, the tariffs were 0. Now it's 10%. That could go up or down depending on how the relationship goes with Sweden. That's where we make our cardstock right now. It's in a beautiful little town in Sweden. Like I said, a mill that's been there since like, I think 1620 or something like that. But yeah, so yeah, 10%. That's a reality. It's been pretty stable. I think most of the discussion has been around other well, Europe. They just had some meetings this weekend, and I think they settled at 15%. So I think that the EU is probably going to be 15%, but it was 0. And so now if it's going to be 15%, yes, you're going to have a price increase. So, and that's true across the board. We make products in the United States, we make products in Mexico, in China, in Vietnam, in Taiwan, in Sweden, in France, in the UK, gosh, and I'm probably in Italy, and I'm probably going to forget someplace. There's another country I don't remember. I apologize, whoever I forgot.
And
But
Yana do some great cards in Ukraine.
yes. Yeah. So yes, it's going to affect everything from everywhere except for the US. And even then, one of the questions I had on here was like, even then, some of the materials, some of the raw materials for US manufactured products come from other countries. So yeah, that's going to be affected too. So even if something is made in the US, it's still going to probably be affected by raw materials that come from someplace else.
Yeah.
Cool. I think that, let me look down through this.
Did we cover the non-US? How can people support?
Oh, yeah. That was a great question. So Skylar had somebody, if you're non-US, I hadn't even thought of this. And so I apologize if I don't have a great answer right away. But I certainly appreciate your support. If you're non-US, if you're not in the US, how can you support that? I would think that each country runs a little bit differently as far as like trade representation and who is negotiating with the US. And if you're in China, you can certainly, I don't know what you can do as far as writing your representatives there, but if you're in Europe or Canada, US, Mexico, you can reach out to do a little Google search on trade representatives for Canada and write your local legislators, your representatives in Canada, or if that's in Europe, whoever your local representatives are there. So yeah, I think Western countries, Europe, North America, I think we have a pretty good one thing, again, I want to reemphasize that I was pleasantly surprised at when we went to visit our congressmen and senators. If you've never done it, it's an interesting process. And it's refreshing that they're very nice people, and They're very open and they want to hear what's causing you problems, because at the end of the day, the biggest thing is jobs. Everybody wants jobs to be impacted in a positive way. If dyes go away, I told you before, our company is 50 to 60 people in that kind of range. If we stop importing from China, and because if we had the commitment, if we wanted to make a dye factory in the US today, it would take us 4 to 5 years to do that easily, and $10 to $12 million. And the government doesn't help us with a bridge between today and whenever that day could be. So if we stop doing dyes today, our 50 to 60 employees goes to 10, maybe. And so that's the reality, is jobs makes is everything. Because when people are employed, they're doing what they like, they're doing what they love, they're bringing home a paycheck, they have pride, they have they're spending their money, they're not taking money from the government, they're giving money to the government. So that's really what it's all about, and that's what we want. We want people to be gainfully employed. We want people to love their passion, love what they do, to make beautiful cards, share with their friends. And again, if you disagree with anything I said, you're still my friend. Yeah, I still care about you. I still want you to make cards and do great things. So did you have any more?
No, that's it.
All good? You good, Yana?
Yes, all good.
Everybody good? All right. Well, it was an interesting conversation, interesting talks. I wish I could have seen everybody's faces. And, if anybody has any questions, feel free to send our customer support a question, or we'll try to monitor social media. I think you said you're going to try to monitor the YouTube for a while. So if people watch this tomorrow or the next day or a couple of days from now, we get new fresh questions, we'll try to put the answers in there too. And if things change, if there's some revelation or something else happens, we can do this again. I would much rather talk about our new innovative products, and I'd much rather be on a call with Yana talking about what cool things we have coming out. But this is a really important subject, and I'm glad that we're able to share it with you guys. I know we ran an hour and a half. Is it an hour and a half or?
It is.
About 2.5.
We've been live
And a
for
half.
2.5 hours.
Sorry.
But that was kind of expected. I mean,
But it was good stuff. So I'm glad that we had the chance to talk and get all this out there, and hopefully people understand where we're coming from, and hopefully we open some eyes, and you, like I said, you still don't have to agree. I respect that. I'm glad that you're passionate about what you do, and we're here to fuel that passion and make beautiful things. That's our mission.
well said, Denzel. Thank you.
All right.
Thank you for taking the time. Thank you
Yeah.
for explaining it all. It's I'm sure everybody feels the same. This has been an eye-opener. So much interesting information, and yeah, thank you for explaining it so well to us.
Cool. Thank you so much. I appreciate your time. Thanks for giving us the platform to do it.
It's the least that I can do. That's what I can do from Europe. That's my contribution.
Good. Well,
Yeah.
thank you so much, and we'll talk to you later.